Well, g'day ladies and gents, Full Face here, coming at you live and direct from Bunbury, Western Australia. Got another review here for you today. Today we are riding a 2013 XVS650 Classic. I've ridden a couple of the cruisers now. I've ridden a Suzuki Intruder 250, the Virago 250. I've actually ridden one of these before in the custom model. And I did do the review, but I hadn't put it up because after reviewing the footage, I had a fair bit of fog on the lens, and I wasn't happy with it, so I didn't put it up. So finally, a couple of months later, I've come around again and got another chance to ride on one of these and give you my impressions. So this isn't actually the first time I've had one of these for a couple of weekends now. And I've had time to get used to it, so yeah, let's get into it. So the XVS650 is a 649cc V-twin, and I believe it's a 60-degree configuration. These things are quite heavy. They're about 232 kilos, I think, for the Classic. I think the Custom's a little bit less. They are quite heavy. The old Custom, I think, weighs about 30 kilos less, so just over the 200 mark. These things have got about 40 horsepower. Although being quite heavy, they're not the fastest thing. You get a shaft drive, which is a shaft drive rear end. You can't see from there, but I'll show you later on. But essentially, it's a fairly bare bones cruiser. Now, these things being lambs legal over here in Australia, you're basically taking over the 250s for the entry-level cruiser mark, having the extra power and the extra torque. It quite happily sits on 110, 120 k's an hour. I actually just got back from a ride. I didn't have the camera with me, but to the next town over, and I had to take a mate home. So we were two up, and it was quite happily doing 120. These are a 5-speed gearbox, and to be honest, I wouldn't mind the gearing just being the tad longer or it having a stick gear. A couple of times you just notice on the highway, it does rev a little bit higher. It doesn't have a tacho, so I couldn't tell you what it's at, but you can just feel it. You'd like to have those revs just the tiniest bit lower. But yes, as I said, they've completely taken over the 250 market for the cruiser class. We sell these things hand over fist. We don't, so much so that we don't even stock a XV or XVS 250 anymore. We only stock the 650 in the Custom and the Classic. The differences between the Custom and the Classic, and generally the Custom comes out like you've already taken all the stuff off this, and it's meant to take it back to that 1940s, 50s look of when to make a bike go fast, all you could do was take things off it and make it a little bit lighter, really. There was no sort of aftermarket parts and bits and pieces, and that's sort of what the two models represent. Now, it does actually go quite well. I mean, off the bottom, what it's made for, I mean, cruising around town and then being a bit of a little weekender for your learners, it does quite well. The standard tyres obviously aren't the greatest. You can feel some little chattering and bits and pieces on there. So that would probably be one thing I'd change off the bat. See there? Just feel it just chirps that tiniest little bit. But yeah, as an entry-level learner bike, you just sort of can't beat them. They're quite well priced. Do you know what? I forget just off the top of my head what they are. I think you're looking at about 8 or 9 grand. Sorry, you're looking at 10. I think it's 10 for the for the classic or the custom. One of them's 10 and one of them's 11, or 500 bucks or $1,000 more. And you do get a fair bit of bike for your money, but like I said, they're pretty much a bare bones cruiser. There's no bells and whistles, you don't get any electronics or anything like that, but you do get that classic cruiser look. Now the performance, as far as it goes, like I say, it off the bottom and around town, it's great. It's just got enough power to tow 2 people around town on the highway. The brakes, again, they leave a little bit to want, and these things, coming from a sports bike, brake quite differently than you would with something like a Ninja or you know, your sports bike or something like that. These bikes, you generally brake from the rear, and I don't know if this thing being a shaft drive has a lot more to do with it. The 250 I rode wasn't as much like that, but all the weight seems very low and rear on this bike. And yeah, I find that generally you brake from the rear, you almost don't use the front like you would in a sports bike. Generally, yeah, with my bike, even though it's only a Ninja 250, you know what I mean, I brake 70% front, maybe 30% rear, you know what I mean, if that, if not 80 front. With this thing, it would be completely the complete opposite. I would use 80% of the rear and a little bit of front to level it out. So even sort of this stuff, you can lean it over a surprising amount. I'm actually quite impressed there. I've been waiting all day for this thing to scrape, and it's been doing really well. So from the slow speed stuff, you can just see it doesn't handle too badly. We'll do a bit of a walk around. So there it is, ladies and gents. This one's got an aftermarket pair of saddlebags added on, and that is it. I'm pretty sure the classic comes with the running boards, and the custom just comes with like normal foot pegs. They're quite comfortable. I'm not going to argue. It doesn't look bad at all. As I say, this one's a 2013 model, and this one's only done about 10,000 Ks, so see, it's still in really good condition, has the stock exhausts on them. I might put a little clip in later on just to show a comparison. I did, the last one I rode had a set of Vance & Hines short shots on it, and it changes the sound dramatically. I don't know if it made it any faster. I was debating with myself for the longest time whether, because I actually rode the same bike back to back with the stock exhaust and then the short shots, and I don't think it made it any faster, just a lot louder. So right, yeah, that's a quick walk around. I'm just going to jump back on and get straight back into it. But yeah, as I said earlier, the performance is not gonna light a fire under you. It's quite adequate, we'll say that. Could be a little bit faster off the bat, but this is a heavy bike you're lugging around. If you go for the custom, which I'm pretty sure the last one I rode was, I can't quite remember now, it was a good 5 or 6 months ago. But that just to me felt a little bit faster. I'm pretty sure it was the weight. So what I'm going to do now is just shoot down here and show you the brakes. So that back is so sensitive, but again, most of your braking comes from the rear. It's really strange. It's not going to stop on a dime. But this sort of riding here, coming through town Friday night, just as the sun's going down, oh, it's great. Jump on the highway like I was earlier. So we sat on 100 120 for about 15 minutes, to about 30 k's or so. And the wind I'm not a huge fan of. You can get a fair few different screens for these things, and I'll throw in a really quick clip as well of the XV650 that I rode that had the big police style screen. You can get the exact same screen for this thing, and if you're going to do a lot of Ks on it, oh, I think that would be a no-brainer. Would I buy one of these if I was in the market for an entry-level Lambs cruiser? I probably would. There's a couple of things like this. These aren't the cheapest bike. Like I say, the XV, you probably get one for 4 or 5 grand. They're really quite cheap if you're wanting a cruiser, a Lambs cruiser. But you also get that sort of performance too, and they're quite rough around the edges. They're not very refined, well, not as refined as this. This still feels very classic, very raw, but there's a lot more refined than the XV650. But these are going to set you back almost double the price. Now, if it was me, I would probably tend to go and pick up a second-hand one, a couple of years old. We sell these second-hand. We get these traded in quite often as well. Once guys, you know, they do their Lambs, they do trade up, or they want to. We sell these for 3 to 5 grand. They're not expensive second-hand, but they aren't the cheapest new. So if it was me, I would jump on the Gumtrees, on the Craigslist, and pick one up that way. And you'll get one that's, you know, awesome condition, you know, under 5 grand. Do that, ride it, decide whether you want to keep it or move on. And the other thing is the performance accessories for these. The amount of stuff that people do to these bikes. I mean, I've got, again, so many customers that have them, and I've got one customer that's got it as a bobber with a spring seat on it, another one that's got them as a sort of hardtail. These things are used as a very good base to chop up and turn into whatever you want it to be. So it's another good thing about these bikes is you can so easily customize it to your tastes, and there is even like I say, a large amount of aftermarket accessories available through Yamaha and a lot of other aftermarket companies. Now these ergonomics, this thing's really roomy. Although the bars are quite back at you, so you don't have to be very stretched out or anything like that. The seat, it's quite short, but you have a lot of room. You can actually slide forward a bit, you can slide back a bit. I did find out earlier, and although I wouldn't recommend this to anyone, or would I condone it, you can actually jump on this back seat and stretch right out. You're on a long trip. That's going to be awesome. There, sit down there, you've got a long tank, you can actually, you know, you can move around a fair bit. The mirrors are excellent. Not a huge amount of bikes I say that about, but these mirrors are actually quite good. The positioning, they could be a little bit further up, so you, I mean, taking your hand off, you want to wipe something, do something, I clip them a bit, but the visibility in them is very good. And it did take me a little while. If you're coming obviously from a sports bike or something like that, jumping on this, having the feet forward is obviously very different. You do get used to it very quickly. I noticed took me 5 stop starts, and then you know, just as soon as you learn where your feet go, you're laughing. But it does, those first couple of stops are a little bit wobbly. The headlights, the last one I rode a bit at night through town and in the, you know, off in the back streets and the country roads, and the headlights very good, better than most. Being protruding so far out and not being back, you know, stuck in a lens, and it does show up very, very well. And I appreciate that. Coming from a sports bike that doesn't have the best headlight at all until you throw the high beams on, and even then, you know what I mean, it's not the best thing on earth. These things are awesome, even with the low beam on. Sun hasn't even gone down yet. It's going to show it a lot darker than it is on the GoPro, but that's actually showing up on the road already. My bike wouldn't be showing up at all. What I wouldn't mind doing is if I can get my hands on the custom, I wouldn't mind jumping on that and just doing a real quick back-to-back ride. It's not always possible. We don't have a huge amount of demos, as I've said in reviews before. We can only have a couple of demos, being a small country store, and we don't have a huge amount of second-hand bikes either, so this might not be possible. But if I can ride a custom, I'll jump on that really quickly and just see if I can actually feel the weight difference, because that's been a bit of an interest to me, looking through the specs, and the custom being about 25 to 30 kilos lighter. I'd be interested just to see, and they have a slightly different sort of setup, and the feet positioning and the handlebars and stuff like that. Just the handling and ergonomics difference. From what I remember, when like I say, I'm pretty sure I rode the custom last time, this is actually a little bit more comfortable. The classic is a bit more comfortable. Although the trade-off is it's heavier, so it doesn't quite handle as good. It definitely feels a little bit slower. I don't know, it doesn't take off the line quite as quick. I think it's just got that extra 30 kilos on it. It's got to be it, because the engines are identical, everything else is pretty much identical. The stock exhaust, although quiet, doesn't sound the worst. But again, once you chuck an aftermarket setup on them, that sounds a lot better. Here we go. Well, louder. Better's subjective, I guess. To me, yeah, I don't know. Short term it's good. Don't know how long you'd want to deal with that cackling in your ear hole. So I'm gonna be out of here, ladies and gents. This has been a Yamaha XVS650 2013 model in the classic. If there's anything you want to know about these bikes, you can always chuck a comment down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And again, I do apologise for this one being a little bit jumbled up. Usually I would do them a little bit more structured. And as I say that, I just remembered I haven't done a bit of a 0 to 100 or a 0 to 60. And I'm going to do that for you now. I'm going to turn down here and gas it down the street just before I turn off the camera. So that's been it, ladies and gents. Full face out.